And what's up? Welcome in GC Live Tuesday episode, slightly delayed as we always are on Tuesday. This is Shane Beamer press conference day. Normally also player press conference day. No players today. They'll be speaking on Wednesday instead when Marcus Satterfield and Clayton White will be speaking as well. What's up to everybody already in the chat? He is Chris Clark. I am Wes Mitchell. Regardless of where you're joining us from, whether it's live on the video form or in audio podcast form afterwards, we appreciate you, appreciate the support, and we appreciate our good friend Clint Hammond of the Mortgage Network, who helps make this show possible every single weekday. Get more information on Clint from Clint, clinthammond.com, 803-771-6933. As you probably know by now, Clint is the branch manager of the Columbia Mortgage Network, and his NMLS number is 71597. Again, C. Hammond at mortgagenetwork.com or 803-771-6933. Clint's easily one of the best mortgage guys in the business in really all of the state of South Carolina. Chris, press conference today. Shane Beamer speaking, of course. Injury update, as always, was part of it. For the most part, not much breaking news. I would say the biggest news expected, but confirmed now, appears Luke Doty will be the starting quarterback. I guess the way Beamer said it, as long as, everything still feels fine, he'll be the guy. He'll start on Saturday. But Beamer saying Doty, quote, feels great. He said what a warrior that kid is to come out and do what he did with very limited practice. He is a warrior. Bounced right back and was at practice Sunday night. He did everything today. So by all intents and purposes, Luke Doty is your starting quarterback Saturday against Kentucky. Based on how he played, based on the way he was bouncing around out there as well, I didn't see any signs of hobble or anything like that. Not a surprise, but good to know that Doty is the guy going into Saturday, man.
Yeah, and Zeb Noland also, mentioned by Shane Beamer is they think they will have him back if they needed him, but did not throw the ball today. Tuesday's practice still has some stitches. So, just another added layer there. And that Zeb Noland, who started the first 3 games for South Carolina, not practicing today in terms of throwing the football. So just another layer to, a reason for Doty to start. But even Wes, if Zeb was available, you would think that Luke Doty would still be getting the start, like you said, based on what he's done. Projected to be the starter coming into this year, went in against Georgia in tough circumstances, played well, no ill effects, and by all accounts feels good, looks good, and so that'll be interesting. First start for Luke Doty this year, and it'll be in a pivotal, critical game against the Wildcats.
Yeah, it'll be a great atmosphere as well. Shane Beamer saying that he hopes everybody. I wonder if he read that there was a tweet to him, about not being able to make noise because of masks, and Beamer said that he hopes everyone yells so loud that they yell a hole through their masks. So I thought it was interesting. Every coach, every press conference says something about their fans, and I'm sure we'll have a great atmosphere on Saturday, or I'm sure the fan, like every coach says something to that effect going into a game. But Beamer speaking directly to the fans, asking for their support on Saturday, asking for it to be an incredible atmosphere. It kind of reminds me a little bit, Chris, and maybe this may bring back some bad memories for people, but the Kentucky game, not 2 years ago, but 2 years prior to that. So 4 years ago, I believe that was a blackout game. Debo got hurt. This thing was set up really to be a marquee game for South Carolina that year. And it looked like, South Carolina scored right off the bat. Debo had a long catch and run. South Carolina had some momentum as a program and in the game. They ended up losing. I remember Chris, for a large portion of the Muschamp era, I felt like South Carolina just could not. They kept missing opportunities, right? Like they were big games that could have helped move the program forward, and they missed those opportunities. They needed marquee wins. They actually ended up getting, that marquee win finally when they beat Georgia in Athens, but they didn't build off of it. So not that beating Kentucky is some program-changing win. It's not. Nobody's saying that at all. But for this season, for a chance to get to bowl eligibility, to put yourself in a position to be feeling good coming off of a game where Georgia, sort of beat up on you a little bit. This is a massive game for South Carolina. The recruits that are going to be there are very, very talented. And I think this game is important to build off of this opportunity because I do expect it to be an electric atmosphere with a lot of big-time prospects on campus.
Yeah, Shane Beamer mentioning that today as well, Wes, that they were going to have a great, I can't remember the adjective he used, but basically a great group of prospects. By the way, Wes already has an early visitor list out on GamecockCentral.com on the front page. Big recruiting weekend, multiple official visitors coming in, and plenty of underclassmen, from the 23, 24 classes. And we anticipate that list is going to continue growing throughout the week. But you're right. I remember specifically that game, Wes, 2017. First play of the game, Debo touchdown. Actually ensuing Kentucky drive, Sky Moore interception. So everything going right for the Gamecocks. They missed the extra point actually on their first touchdown, got the interception, good field position, missed a long field goal. Kentucky fumbled the ball after that, so you're still in good shape. But then a Carolina interception, and just couldn't capitalize. I remember that was the big kind of a buzzword or the descriptor after that game was not capitalizing on a lot of opportunities early in that game, and thus they ended up playing catch up. But the atmosphere at that game was tremendous. The air got taken out later, and so if you're South Carolina, that's what you want to avoid. You want to get off to a good start. We didn't see that against CCU. We certainly didn't see it against Georgia. Get off to a good start, play a more clean game, and of course we're going to dive into all kind of the micro storylines here, in terms of the individual matchups and the team matchups against Kentucky.
So let's go injury report again, past Luke Doty. South Carolina, other than what was obviously a very serious injury to Sherrod Green, a relatively healthy football team. I think it's weird to sort of say it like that because they, that was a big injury to Green, and that's sort of the first major, not season ending, but season altering as far as, he may be back by the end of the year, maybe not. So, again, you hate it for Sherrod because he's dealt with injuries throughout his career and he was playing really well. And I thought looked comfortable. I thought he looked fast. I think these linebackers like playing in this scheme and, just you feel for Sherrod. As we said, Doty back, Zeb will be back, is anticipated to be back. Xavier Legette did not play on Saturday. Beamer confirmed why. He was in a little bit of a traffic incident, scraped up, minor deal. He's questionable for Saturday. Doesn't sound like anything long term. You go down the list though. Cam Smith, that was really, that was kind of I would say that was a scare for Cam Smith. Missed the entire second half. Missed practice on Sunday. He was back practicing today. He's 100%. So really, for the most part, this team, if you're a Gamecock fan, knock on wood, because this team seems pretty healthy at this point. Everybody's going to have injuries. Everybody's going to deal with stuff. But getting Doty back healthy, obviously, is a big part in me saying that.
Yeah, you're right. It's been, that was one of the keys to the season. And with a game like football, it's such a violent game. There are some factors that are obviously out of your control there as far as injuries. There's just so many different things that can happen. Nonetheless, it was a key for South Carolina because they are thin at some positions and they're in a state where they needed their starters to go the distance, meaning they needed to play most of the snaps, right? Linebacker is in a spot where right now, Wes, I don't think they felt great about like 5 guys. They've had 5 play. We saw against Georgia, for instance, Sherrod Green played 2 snaps and went down. We knew that Damani Staley would be next man up, and then they played Darrell Ware, who was placed on scholarship today. Good for him. And they also played Mo Kaba. Debo Williams, of course, is another option that they'd like to continue bringing along. But this is a spot where, they've been healthy, which is fantastic. Linebacker is one of the spots, Wes, where they really, really needed to avoid injuries, I think, because, you've got Sherrod, a guy who missed, remember, first game last year against Tennessee, he goes down with that hip injury, misses the whole rest of the year, works his way back, earned a starting position, was playing well, like you said, looked good, goes down in this game against Georgia and out for a long time. Now Damani Staley, who was your third guy who could play either Mike or Will linebacker, now he's a starter. And so then when Staley goes to the bench or Brad Johnson goes to the bench, now you're dipping more into that depth that maybe you don't feel great about. So, opportunity for Mo Kaba, Darrell Ware, maybe a Debo Williams, but a big loss. And Shane Beamer said as much today. He said it's a massive loss for us, and we're not going to sugarcoat it. And I think the reasons I laid out right there are exactly why. It's a tough deal for South Carolina for Green.
I think that's a position, first of all, and you do the snap counts, Chris. Debo Williams has not played a ton, correct? Yeah, did he get in?
Against Georgia, he did not.
Okay, so he and I use our snap counts on Gamecock Central. By the way, it's a lot of people love those. It's a perk of being a subscriber. You get snap counts for offense and defense. They do not include special team snap counts. When I do the red shirt tracker each week, I use the participation report from South Carolina. So then if you look, you can very easily quickly see which guys are only playing on special teams if they're on the participation report and not on the snap count. Well, Debo already redshirted last year, so he's not on the red shirt report. But point being, each week Debo has played, but he has not played much on defense so far, which generally that tells you this is a guy who is doing things the right way, has some ability, can make some things happen, has a future, but is not quite ready, whether it's at offense or defense or whatever. Sometimes it's because that position is stacked, you just have, it's loaded up in front of you. Linebacker, as we just said, not a loaded position. So I think right now that tells us that Debo Williams, who, I think we're all very high on his potential, is still coming along. We got to remember this is a freshman. And I think we warned people of that, Chris. We said, look, this is a freshman who did not play last year. They did not have a season. Well, if you look, man, to me, I start looking at Mo Kaba as sort of being that guy that you're going to have to circle and is going to have to continue to come on. I think there's been flashes from Mo Kaba. Compared to last year, I think he looks much improved. I think there was an aspect of, he was playing some middle linebacker last year. There was an aspect of the mental side of things that, he was still picking up the scheme. I think defensively, this is a little bit easier scheme than South Carolina was in last year. I think the guys are playing fast in it. So to me, I look at number 32. I think he's a guy, as the season goes along, can come on and is going to have to come on as a backup with this injury. I will say Darrell Ware, congrats to him, man. He may be a now former, walk-on guy. Kid was talented in high school, really good high school football player. And I like some of what I've seen from him, man. He popped out to me when late in this football game on Saturday, South Carolina's the game is over. The game is pretty much over. And he's still in there fighting for the ball in the end zone when the ball's in the air, hustling to the football, playing the game the right way. So I think Darrell Ware is going to be a guy that is probably going to play. He played a lot down the stretch last year, Chris. He's probably going to play quite a bit this year with the injury to Sherrod.
Yeah, I think he is. I think off the top of my head, I think he played, 8 to 10 snaps. I think Mo Kaba was up in 10 to 12 snap range against Georgia. And so or more. And so, they'll need both of those guys. You're right. Both of those guys kind of flashed the other night, especially Kaba. Kaba had a really nice tackle for loss. This is a kid, Wes, that has, in terms of his physical ability and how he looks and how he can move, he's got those things. Debo Williams, similar thing, although he's not as physically imposing as Kaba. We know that he can hit. Darrell Ware's an experienced guy from last year. I think they were in kind of that next three guys that Clayton White really wanted to bring along. In the preseason, it was pretty evident that it was Sherrod Greene, Brad Johnson, Damani Staley being kind of that third guy, that swing guy. And then from there, they wanted to bring those others along. So it'll be, to an extent, growing up fast for Mo Kaba, Darrell Ware, who did play some last year down the stretch. Those guys now are going to see more action, and it's going to be important, that they go out and they play well.
No doubt, man. So we'll see how that goes. And it'll be a learning process, I think. It definitely will be. But we'll see how they can handle it. Let's see. Trying to hit some questions here. John says, do we believe the DVs were busted or Georgia wide receivers are just faster? Says they were getting torched. I believe you're going for all game. I don't know if that's an accurate statement, John. I don't think they were getting torched all game. I think they had some moments. That there was one play in particular where Georgia used some tempo, just like South Carolina did. Both teams caught the other team where they sort of not lulled them to sleep, but lulled them into a rhythm, and then at a certain pace, and then they sped it up real quick and quick snapped them. So South Carolina got beat on one of those. Georgia got beat on one of those. There were some moments where the secondary sort of they got shown what an SEC receiving core can do to you. So is there some stuff that's going to have to be cleaned up there? Absolutely. Some of it, yes, there were some busts. I don't know how you answer that question, Chris, how you categorize it. Some of it is just you're playing a football game against a good football team that has balance, that is running the football, that is protecting the quarterback. This is not a J.C. Horn-led secondary anymore. Sometimes you just get beat.
Yeah, I thought, on the touchdown to Jermaine Burton, Cam Smith, it looked like, South Carolina on the perimeter maybe wasn't quite ready. Either that or there was some confusion as to the coverage. Shane Beamer mentioned that today, that kind of intimated that there might have been a little bit of coverage on the confusion. I think he termed it kind of letting a guy run by you. That happened a little bit on that Cam Smith play. And when you get a guy, basically any SEC receiver, but Jermaine Burton, a former 4-star, really good player, if you let him get some steps on you, you're going to have a hard time catching up. The other deep ball touchdown, I think, the coverage in terms of the call, I think they were there. I think it was a situation where a guy ran a good route. There was protection. There was a good deep ball, and the receiver won. I think we saw that. Shane Beamer was quick to point out today that they had some good coverage on downfield throws. I thought, Wes, that, look, we knew that Georgia was going to have more explosive potential in the run game and the pass game, and that there could be some exposures there. That happened. I think even more disappointing, even than the long touchdowns probably, was some of the third down work for South Carolina. Georgia was able to be so balanced that makes it tougher on third down, especially when you're in, third and shorter. But Georgia converted all manner, of third and short, some third and longs, where basically JT Daniels had time. And something Beamer mentioned today was doing a better job of being aware of where the sticks are. We saw, and I'm surprised this isn't more of a storyline. I've seen some of it, some of the cushion that was given. Georgia was basically able to run right past the sticks, turn around, and there was the ball. And if you're not getting adequate pressure on the quarterback on third down, that's going to happen. So, yeah, there were some issues. Can they be cleaned up? Yeah, I think some of them can be, and Georgia's going to bring, they have a good receiving core and a really capable quarterback as well.
Yeah, and I think some of those things, man, it just goes back to down and distance. Like and I know one play in particular that a lot of people saw. I think DJ Swearinger even tweeted about it, where it was I think 3rd and 6, and the nickelback is playing off, and they complete a first down right at the sticks, and it was pitch and catch for JT Daniels, who saw it immediately. They were either already in that play or they got into that play and just said, look, we're going to go turn around and you're going to have it. And, I think the thing is there, Chris, people look at it and say, well, why is he so far off? Well, that's the call. And whether you're in zone or off man or whatever it is, you can even line up far off like that, but you have to know where the sticks are, regardless of the call. You have to know the down and distance, and you have to close on that guy and eat up that space earlier, because clearly that was the DB that had coverage, whether it was that guy was in his zone or that it was an off-man coverage. Clearly that was the DB who was going to have to cover that guy. Well, you have to know he's going to the sticks. And I think even without knowing the intricacies of that particular coverage, what he was supposed to do, et cetera, sometimes it really just gets back down to down and distance and knowing exactly where the sticks are, and altering your depth a little bit based on that, just like that receiver is going to do the same thing. If he has a 5-yard hitch, he's going to turn it into a 5.5-yard hitch to get the first down if he's smart. So I think certainly some of that just I think comes with time, but something to maybe keep an eye on moving forward, and just comes with continue to tweak. I think this defensive staff, for the most part, has really done an outstanding job as far as maximizing what they have and getting these guys to play hard and play well. But that was a situation where it was made for a pretty easy pitch and catch. I think we saw, Chris, that South Carolina could dominate pass rush game against EIU and ECU. Well, then facing a front like Georgia, there were some times when they brought pressure, Georgia picked it up. There were some times when they did try to just rush 4 and drop back into coverage. Well, you can do that, but you have to be able to get there. And I think Georgia proved that they could actually block in those situations pretty well. So to me, some of that is just, Georgia's a good offensive line. Some of that is maybe you do have to just take a little more risk in those situations. But I give the staff a little bit of a pass there, because some of that stuff you don't know until you see it play out. Like, we kept talking about how we were going to learn a lot about South Carolina's defense in this game. Well, I think we learned against average to below average offensive lines and pass pro, they can pretty much rush 4 if they want. They can bring pressure if they want. They're probably going to get there. Against more upper echelon offensive linemen, maybe at least in this one game instance, they were not dominant in the pass rush department.
Yeah, Georgia, look, part of it has to be mentioned. They're pretty good up front. You go back and look at who recruited their guys, where they were ranked. Is it the experience level? This is a talented bunch. The other thing, Wes, is what I mentioned earlier, that when a team is able to be balanced, that makes it tougher on a defense. It makes it tougher on a defensive coordinator. So when you're facing a one-dimensional team, if they're in obvious passing situations, if they haven't had much success running the football all game, you are able to tee off a little bit more, even if you're rushing 4. You're able to alter your calls. When a team's having success up front, in terms of running the ball, when they're playing well up front, when they're passing the ball with effectiveness, whether it's some deep balls, whether it's intermediate throws, short throws. We saw all that from Georgia. They were able to be very balanced. That's going to make it more difficult on your calls. It's going to make it more difficult, in terms of how you play it up front, which is why you always hear, the defensive coordinators want to make the opponent one-dimensional. Tough to do that to Georgia, right? They have, the funny thing, Wes, was we came into this game wondering a little bit about Georgia's running game, even with that offensive line in their backs. And they proved, look, they're still pretty good. Is it Todd Gurley-esque? No, not right now. But Wes, they had their top 3 backs are former 5-stars. They played 2 more backs in the game that were both top 150 kids. So, 3 5-stars and a couple high 4-stars in that mix. And, it just goes to show they're a really talented team. It was a tough matchup. And I thought South Carolina's defensive line did make some plays. I think you still feel pretty good about that unit, like going forward, right? Like the Georgia game didn't take away the fact that this defensive line has still got a chance to be a pretty good unit this year. But they definitely, met their match at least, back on Saturday night. And they're going to have, a tough challenge on Saturday night too, because Kentucky's got some guys with plenty of experience and plenty of talent too.
Yeah, and I think ultimately it always goes down to matchups. Like we as covering South Carolina or fans who are South Carolina fans may look at it and say, well, this unit didn't play well. Well, really, it's how do you play against that particular opponent? And that's sort of the point I was trying to get. Like I agree. I still feel that this is a really good defensive front South Carolina has. Now, I think as the year goes on, you gather more and more information, right? Like you're like, okay, this is a good defensive front. Are they also really good? Are they great? Are they elite? If they had gone into Athens and just ragdolled Georgia's offensive linemen,
elite,
I'd have been like, these guys might be elite, right. Like off the page, off the charts. And then it's a 1-game sample. Like I think, but we did learn, this Georgia offensive line, and that, I know Beamer was relatively happy with how South Carolina stopped the run, but if you look at the numbers, I'm sure Georgia was very happy with how they ran the football as well, man. Like they got their yardage on the ground when they wanted to. So just another example, of where the difference and where the two programs are right now, if you want to be honest. But yeah, let's get into Kentucky a little bit, man. I guess we're probably gonna have Justin Rowland Thursday, I believe.
Not 100% confirmed, but I feel good that we'll be able to get Justin this week and probably Thursday.
Yeah, I think we'll give you all the details on that later on. But Beamer very complimentary of Kentucky, as you would expect. He is talked up and given due respect to every team that South Carolina has played, but gave some details, about what most impressed him about Kentucky. And one thing he mentioned, the fronts, man, the size of these guys. These are SEC, certainly an SEC offensive line, and I think a solid SEC defensive line, and then their new quarterback, man, a ton of respect from Beamer at that position.
Yeah, their quarterback, Will Levis, has done a really good job. He's a bigger kid. He has a good arm. I mean, he's a very impressive thrower. I think you look back at some of the Kentucky teams, Wes, and that seemed to be a missing element at times. Like you think of what Kentucky's been under Mark Stoops when they kind of made their ascension. They had to be very patient with Mark Stoops, let him build it. By year 4 or so, he was able to build it, and they've been a tough out for teams, even really good teams in the SEC. So you think of defense, physicality, running the ball, but they've got a guy who looks like a legitimate, really good quarterback now. And they've had some at Kentucky for sure, but this kid looks the part and has played the part. They did not play as well as a team against Chattanooga last week, but that could very well be more of the exception than the rule as far as what this team is. He's very capable of throwing the ball. Wan'Dale Robinson, the Nebraska transfer, is an electric player. They have a big offensive line. That's a position that Kentucky's quietly recruited very well for the last few years. And defensively, they got some guys too in terms of size. And Stoops obviously is quite an accomplished defensive coach too. So big challenge there. And I think, Wes, the biggest difference this year is with this Kentucky team. I think you have to be quite concerned about the deep ball, right? And we've seen a few explosive plays from this Carolina defense that they've been on the wrong end of. As Clayton White likes to say, when you make a mistake in the secondary, it's going to show up on the scoreboard. And so that's going to be, I think, a big point of emphasis in key to this game.
I believe one of Clayton White's favorite sayings, at least in press conferences, it seems. Chris wants to know if we'll get a Kentucky rep on the show. Yes. Again, Justin Yeah, Justin emailed me back, and he will be on at some point between 2 and 3 on Thursday. Some talk about the weapons on here. Jaheim Bell and Mark, I kind of disagree. Jaheim Bell is a weapon at tight end. Yes, he's an elite athlete. He can play anywhere, but he is a tight end. Like, that is his primary position. And I think, Beamer was asked about this today, Chris. I believe he wants, and this is not about Jaheim Bell particularly, but anytime Beamer is asked about why does a guy not play more, or why does a guy not get the ball more, he says they have to continuously practice the way they're expected to. But also with Jaheim in particular, Jaheim Bell has been on the field. Like, it's not that he just has not played. And I think something that we talked about yesterday, you have to stay on the field. You have to have success offensively in order to get all these different guys involved. Like, when a coach, how many times has a coach, just as long as y'all have been following the team, how many times Spurrier used to say, yeah, we need to get this guy more involved. Yeah, it's on us. We got to get him the football. And what do you think to yourself? Well, you're the coach. Get him the football. What do you mean? Well, you only have so many plays in a game. If you're not making first downs, then you have very limited opportunities to make that concerted effort to get this guy. Somebody asked earlier, where was Juju? Juju was on the field. He played some snaps. Kevin Harris was the main running back as far as snaps go. It seemed obvious my guess is they just liked Kevin Harris's physicality that he was going to bring to this game. How many times did Shane Beamer talk about physicality, Chris, after the game?
Yep.
That to me is why they went with Kevin.
Right.
Or Kevo Harris, as I like to call him, because that's his Twitter name. They wanted Kevo's physicality on the field. So sometimes it's about a matchup. But to me, man, you want to get Jaheim Bell the ball. You want to get Amarian Brown the ball when he's in there because, get his speed element in there. You want to move the ball around to these tight ends. The way you do that, make first downs. Like, you have to, in order to build plays on top of plays, you have to find a rhythm. You have to find what you're good at. You have to stick to what you're good at. But then you use that to get the ball out, to dispense the ball to your different places, right? Well, until you're staying on the field and making first downs and making touchdowns, you're not going to consistently be able to get the ball to a bunch of different people, because if you're looking at South Carolina in this past game, it was either 3, 4, 5 and out, or, as you had pointed out, Chris, they were going to need explosive plays. Well, when they were scoring, when they were getting in field position to score, it was almost exclusively by explosive plays. So even your scoring drives are short drives from how many plays you're running. So you want to get everybody the ball, make first downs, and run a lot of plays.
Yeah, you got to extend some drives, have to establish some things to run some other different things off of that. Kentucky dealt with this past week. Was listening to Mark Stoops some after the Chattanooga game. Again, they struggled through that. You texted me the day of that game, Wes. You said, boy, check out Kentucky. They're struggling against Chattanooga. And something that Stoops pointed out was, there are times where the defense would get several stops. The offense would fizzle out. The offense would, start producing. The defense would fizzle out. They only had 20 snaps, I think he said, in the second half against Kentucky or against Chattanooga. So that shows you right there, 20 snaps. I mean, say it's 4 drives, average of 5 plays a drive. That's not great math unless you're scoring on one of those, and they weren't. So, apply that to South Carolina. I think they had 66 snaps against Georgia, and a lot of those, Wes, like you said, 3, 4, 5 out, sprinkle in some explosive plays here and there. And then Georgia scored, an ample amount of times, or South Carolina had drives, right? But they weren't able to sustain many of them. So, yeah, you got to be able to sustain drives. You got to be able to have some established success on the ground, through the air, so that you can get all these different people involved. And it generally helps if you're not playing Georgia as well. I mean, that tends to help a little bit.
Well, and it really takes your options out of the game, I feel like, man, because how many first downs are a run call? So, then in this case, you're running the football. You're not really having much success running the ball when you run on first down. So now you're in second and long, then you're in third and long. And when you get in third and long, they're really, yeah, you can try to scheme guys open, but against a defense as good as Georgia's, to me, it's almost like, I got to just throw to who's open. There's not really, if anybody is open, it's kind of, it's hard to just on first, like, I feel like on first downs, if you're throwing the football, you can make a little more of a specific effort to like, hey, we've got downs to work with here. It's 1st and 10. They don't know if we're running or throwing. Let's go play action and set something up for Jaheim Bell. Let's set up a deep shot to Josh Van. You can do some different things like that. But I feel like until you have a rhythm, it's just hard to get too particular about let's get the ball to this guy, let's get the ball to that guy. So I don't know. I mean, every school in the country, unless you're just rolling on offense, has these same conversations. To me, the greater part of this is you're just going to have to get in a better spot where you're executing better across the board on offense. The rest of that stuff will take care of itself. If they're executing on offense, Jaheim Bell's going to get the football because he's a good football player, and they need guys who can go get the football. So we'll see, man. I know you did a what I don't know what they call it on the Kentucky site. Was it a behind enemy lines or from the other sideline? So you've chatted with them a little bit. That was more about South Carolina for the Kentucky site. But have you gotten a sense yet, Chris, for what the mindset is from the Kentucky just fan base and media group and just everybody in that program right now? I know some of the players sort of called that game last week with UT Chattanooga a wake-up call for them. Now, if you're Kentucky, you go into a week a lot better when you have a wake-up call that doesn't also involve an L beside your name,
Yeah. Well, you're right. And I think, that the way that Kentucky, as far as the fan base, West, seems to view this game is very different than it was, 10 years ago, maybe even 5-6 years ago, right? Because now I think their perception is that they're looking to make another step, to step past Missouri, South Carolina. Everybody's past Vanderbilt. That'll be our weekly or maybe even our daily shot at Vanderbilt here on the program, Wes. And look to make that next step, right? And so I think there's a lot of it, particularly with the line coming out and Kentucky being up, some expectations that they're favored to win this game and should win this game, right? But some of the things that they saw, I think, against Chattanooga were concerning. Somebody brought it up in the chat. Their quarterback at Kentucky said that he promised that, or assured or swore or whatever, the assurance was that this would be a completely different team against South Carolina. So for the Gamecocks, hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully you can go out and do some stuff against Kentucky to give yourself a chance to win. But, I think the vibe that you get, and I look forward to diving in with Justin Rowland this week on all this stuff. The offense, the feel is that there's a little bit of a revitalization under Liam Cohen. He came from the NFL. By all accounts, a really, really bright guy. And certainly the passing game has looked better. It's looked more explosive. They still have the capability to run the ball with Chris Rodriguez. And then defensively, they've got athletes. So there's probably for Kentucky, some reasons to feel, pretty good about this game. But as I told Justin, and we'll see what he thinks later this week, I view it as kind of a toss-up game. I think just whichever team plays the best on Saturday night is going to win. I don't think it's going to take a Herculean effort or multiple turnovers by one team or another to give them a chance of winning. I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, and I tell you, the guy that Chris appears to be, I don't know if you say the name to know, but certainly a name to know. If you're a Gamecock fan, just wanting us to start to learn a little bit about Kentucky. I look at this guy, Wan'Dale Robinson, the receiver, was a transfer from Nebraska. Not the biggest guy, but a former high 4-star. He was a 6.0 on the rival scale, was a number 1 player in that state, I believe, out of high school. and a guy that has sort of emerged as being their primary target. So he's a guy to know for them, has done really well. And in fact, just reading some stuff during their game last Saturday, Chris, they have they really haven't found quite those other reliable targets to this point. A lot of it has been him going and making some plays for them. So a guy to watch for sure, man.
Yeah, he's electric. Shane Beamer singled him out, and it was huge news for Kentucky, when he transferred back over to the program over there, because it was a significant get. It was a need position for them. But I think that's been two keys for them, right? Chris Rodriguez is a guy. I mean, I think those are the three main guys to know, aside from watching the battle between the offensive line, coached by former assistant Eric Wolford, versus Carolina's defensive line. That's a significant battle, because I think this is going to be very much a trench game. But the quarterback for Kentucky, Will Levis, Wan'Dale Robinson, and then Chris Rodriguez, their running back. Those are the three main guys that are probably going to be doing the heavy lifting for Kentucky and kind of carrying the water offensively. If you're South Carolina, if you can force or somehow have one or all of those guys, kind of have an off night, you're going to give yourself a better chance of success.
Let's go into a little bit of recruiting, man. I'm sure we'll maybe talk about it as the week progresses as well. But right now, and by the way, I would encourage everybody to check out my Carolina Confidential today. Some decent stuff, I would like to think, on the upcoming weekend, and it's going to be a massive one. This is why, when Beamer says be in your seats early, make noise. Is it for the team? Yes. Is it for the players? Is it for the coaches? Yes. Is it also for those guys that are sitting over there in the corner right near the 2001 entrance that are high school football players? Yes. Because this is going to be certainly, I would say it's the biggest recruiting weekend for South Carolina, Chris, since one of the big June weekends when they had a bunch of kids in town for official visits, So you got right now 3 official visitors. You got Jamari Lyons from Vieiro, Florida, who, by the way, don't let the fact that he's still a notch below a 4-star mean anything to you. I can tell y'all that Jamari Lyons to that defensive staff means just as much as anybody else that is visiting South Carolina right now. Huge priority for them. Going to be tough to get him out of Florida. The Gators have been like that perceived favorite for really a long time now. Going to be tough, but Jamari Lyons is in. Antonio Williams will make the very short trip down the road. Of course, Irmo Dutch Fork kid, huge priority wide receiver target for South Carolina. And then Jayshawn Barham finally confirms that he will be an official visitor this weekend as well. We had reported that about a month ago, Chris. This was the weekend that was being eyed, but that is now officially confirmed from him, himself. So even if nobody else on the planet showed up for this weekend,
right,
those 3 would be massive for South Carolina. So I'll be curious to see how they come out of the weekend with those 3 guys.
3 big guys. And Wes, what you said on Jamari Lyons is dead on, and probably, not even probably, definitely applies to the other 2 guys as well. These are 3 guys that are huge priorities for Carolina. It's going to be all hands on deck, whatever cliche you want to come up with. Obviously, a big game going on this weekend, but going to be significant for those guys to get them in and for them to have a great experience. So battles on all of them, right? Jayshawn Barham, main question, of course, he's the edge rusher type from the DMV area in Maryland. The big question for him, can you pull him away from that area? So can you pull him from Penn State, where he went this past weekend, Maryland, schools around there? If you can, you stand a good chance. Jamari Lyons, can you pull him away from the Gators in Florida? He's friends with some guys on the team. Florida's been named the favorite. They've been perceived as the favorite. He likes South Carolina, though. Can you make a move? And then Antonio Williams, can you hold off Ole Miss and some other schools that are still, kind of lingering out there, in Auburn, a Clemson that's still kind of lurking as a potential late offer at some point. So no doubt some huge visits this weekend, and the game experience and the overall experience in Columbia will be huge for all those guys. Wes, before we jump into the next point, I accidentally previewed this for folks earlier. I guess it was a subliminal message. Just trying to cue it up and hit it. Dead Soxy. Let me tell you about him. Deadsoxy.com, DeadSoxy.com. Awesome socks, all varieties, men's, women's, athletic, dress, no show. But the cool thing about them, all with their patented no-slip technology and all with, yes, the buttery soft feel. So we laugh about it. We joke about it on the show a little bit. It's taken on a life of its own. But if you want to check out the actual buttery soft feel, you have to feel it for yourself to actually know what it is instead of just joking about it. Make sure you go to deadsoxy.com, DeadSoxy.com. Use the promo code COCKY and get 25% off your order.
Well done, Chris. Well done. Somebody asked about a list. We do have a list. I will warn you all that is a subscriber-only feature, but I did just post the link. I'm going to post a quick link to our Doty is starting story as well, because y'all do know we have a website too. Like sometimes
awesome. Yep.
Sometimes people on here forget that this whole thing is like based around a website.
It's been around for a long time too.
Since before we were born. Not really, but it's been there since 1998.
I was telling my wife a story about. By the way, I want to talk about the Marshawn Lloyd thing, Wes. I was telling my wife a story about somehow or another Marshawn Lloyd. It's a birthday story came up, and I was like, Marshawn Lloyd, born in Boston, and I said 19 something, and I was like, wait, no, like it had to be 2000 something. So, we're getting old. Is the point, Wes? But yeah, 1998 Gamecock Central, which is wild. I've been with them since 2009. Wes, we fortunately brought you on board in 14, right?
Yeah, all it took was about 3 free lunches.
That's
Chris recruiting me.
That's light work, as we know. So Marshawn Lloyd, I want to talk about this real quick. I had a chance to be there yesterday. Marshawn went to basically an adult, it's kind of special needs adults daycare center. So it's not inpatient. Their caretakers are able to bring them, drop them off for the day so they can go to work, take care of things, whatever. And it was in Florence, New Generations. I was able to be there to take some photos, some video. And man, it was awesome. I mean, it was awesome for me to see. Gives you a cool, perspective and makes you realize how fortunate you are. But Marshawn Lloyd was awesome in that setting. That was one of the reasons they wanted him. The center ownership wanted him to come there. Watching him interact with the adults there, sign stuff, it was awesome. So I just wanted to make mention of that. And hopefully at some point in the next couple of days, we'll have a little bit of video from that stop that we can share.
Chris, man of many talents, shooting some video.
Look at that.
You want to tell Tyler how to subscribe, Chris, while I look for a link for him?
I was actually going to bring up this. Let me make sure this still works, because there's a very easy URL to use, and I think it's join.GamecockCentral.com is still going to work. Yes, it will. That'll actually take you to a page, Tyler, that will kind of tell you about our site, but there's several links in there that say just ready to join. Just click there, and you'll be able to be directed to a page where you can sign up, and that'll give you access to all our content. And we would love to have you as a subscriber and appreciate you asking. Join.GamecockCentral.com.
Yeah, if you, by the way, if you put in GC Pod in the promotional field, you should get 30 days free. So come, just try it out, man. Try it out first.
Good tip.
What else you got, Chris?
Are you about tapped out for the day with the sigh?
No, it was not a tap out. It was just I feel like the press conference has been tapped out. As far as what we learned. I'm ready to dive into Kentucky, man. I'm gonna go watch the by the way, I'm gonna let y'all into a little secret. If you're rewatching the game, I don't know how many of y'all actually rewatch the game, like we sort of need, like we kind of have to. But I love when the games are on ESPN, because anytime you have the Sky Cam, you can actually go back on Watch ESPN and they have the entire game via Skycam. So, like the game this past week, I went back and watched it on the Skycam version, which is you actually see quite a bit as far as what the quarterback is seeing. I'm telling you, man, I thought Luke Doty played great anyway, but just watching that Georgia defense run around and just imagining, that you really hadn't practiced this week, the speed of the game. Beamer made a point that I guess just hadn't really crossed my mind, man. We talked about it in general going into the ECU game, but not as far as Luke goes. How many of those guys on that team was that their first road SEC full capacity game for South Carolina?
Yeah.
And for Luke Doty, you and I have talked quite a bit about he played 2.5 games last year. Well, dude, that's his first time being the quarterback in an atmosphere like that.
Yeah.
So, I judge people's body language a lot, and when they were showing like the up close of his face in that crowd, did not appear to be fazed in the slightest to me. So that, I don't know, man. I small sample size for sure, and we try not to get ahead of ourselves on the negative of things on this show, and we try not to get ahead of ourselves to create unrealistic expectations. But I thought he handled the moment. Forget about all the other part of it. Just handling the moment. Dude handled the moment masterfully.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's that surprising, right? I mean, we mentioned that earlier this week. He's been there before. He, bounced around positionally last year, COVID year, things not going well on the team, gets thrown in at halftime of his first game, and then plays Georgia the next game. And then he plays Kentucky on the road, and things were, kind of officially off the rails at that point in a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons. And so, yeah, it's he did step in. That was his first. That was several of those players' first, biggest environment, road environment, tough circumstances, toughest team they played. Toughest defense for sure. So, yeah, where things go from here, we'll see. But there's no doubt that Doty handled himself well. Shane Beamer even detailed a little bit more of that on his press conference about how he called the team around and just things like that. There's plenty of room to improve and grow on the field for him and all the others. But in terms of the mental capacity, how he handles things, more encouraging signs there for Doty.
No doubt. All right, man, that's going to do it. Appreciate everybody for joining us. Appreciate all the support. Appreciate Clint Hammond, as always, presenting sponsor. Give him a shout, 803-771-6933, ClintHammond.com. We'll be back tomorrow with players talking tomorrow, coordinators talking tomorrow, and we'll have somebody from Kentucky on Thursday. And I'm hoping to mix another guest in there as well, so we'll let you know about that. He's Chris. I'm Wes. We'll see you Wednesday.